Hello everyone, this is Miss Chelsea and today we will be talking about perfect cubes and their roots. Our objective for the day is for you to be able to find the cube root of a perfect cube number. Let's go ahead and start off with a little bit of review. So what does it mean to cube a number? Well, it means to multiply that number by itself twice or raise the number to the third power. So when you cube a number, that number will be a factor 3 times. Let's go ahead and have a look at an example. Calculate the volume of a cube with a side length of 4 inches. We know that to find the volume of a box, we multiply the length, width, and height. However, for cubes, those three numbers are all the same. So what we really have is V equals S times S times S, where S is the side length. Another way of writing this is V equals S cubed. Since the side length is 4, we have the volume is 4 cubed, or 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. And since the length is in inches, the volume will be in cubic inches. Now 64 is an example of a perfect cube, a number that can be expressed as a product of an integer by itself twice, or the third exponent of an integer. Let's go ahead and calculate some perfect cubes. So first we have 1 cubed, which is 1 times 1 times 1, or 1. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, or 8. 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, or 27. Now this just keeps on going until we get to 10 cubed, which is 10 times 10 times 10, or 1,000. Now, in addition to the first 10 perfect cubes, you also need to be able to find the perfect cubes of their opposites, so -1 to -10. In another video, we defined what a square root was. So now we're going to define a cube root. The cube root of a number is a value that, when multiplied by itself twice, gives the number. Let's go ahead and try an example. Calculate the cube root of 125. It looks like this. It's basically a square root, but with a 3 over on the top. Just like when we found the square root, we are going to factor to get the cube root. And 125 is 5 times 5 times 5. Another way of writing this is 5 to the third power. So the cube root of 125 is 5. If we consider this in terms of a cube, it would be the volume of the cube. Next up, let's try an example. What is the side length of a cube with a volume of 27 cubic inches? Well, as we just said, the side length of a cube is the cube root of the volume. So let's take the cube root of 27. You should be able to figure out that 3 times 3 times 3 will give us 27. So that means that the cube root of 27 is 3. And since the volume of the cube is measured in cubic inches, the side length will be measured in inches. The side length of the cube is 3 inches. Next up, let's go ahead and try calculating the cube of a negative number. In this case, -1. So -1 cubed is -1 times -1 times -1, or a -1. But hold up, what is the cube of +1? Well, +1 cubed is 1 times 1 times 1, or a +1. This means that the cube root of -1 is -1, and the cube root of +1 is +1. This is very different from when we found a square root. So, just as a quick summary, there is exactly one cube root for any real number. Any number and its cube root must have the same sign. Let's go ahead and try another example. Calculate the cube root of -2 cubed. Well, -2 cubed is -2 times -2 times -2, which when you multiply it all together gives you a -8. And what is the cube root of -8? Well, it is -2. Notice how the cube root and the cube cancel out, leaving just -2? Well, this shows us that cube and cube root are inverse operations, just like square and square root. Let's try one final example and calculate the cube of 7 over 10. Now, using the power of a quotient rule, we get 7 cubed over 10 cubed, or 7 times 7 times 7 over 10 times 10 times 10. So 7/10 cubed is 343 over 1,000. This means that the cube root of the fraction 343 over 1,000 is the same thing as the cube root of 343 over the cube root of 1,000, or 7 over 10. Notice how we can find the cube root of a rational number by taking the cube root of the numerator and denominator separately, just like we did for square roots.